Welcome again into another biology lesson where we share about flowering and non-flowering plants. You are with me, George Chapusa. Stay there as I explain what are flowering and what are non-flowering plants. Now, by the end of this lesson, I want you to understand or to describe characteristics of flowering and non-flowering plants, and then describe the external features of flowering and non-flowering plants. Then you should also describe the habitats for different groups of plants. So, like what I have already said, we will discuss plants which produce flowers and the plants which do not produce flowers. Now, some plants produce flowers which later develop into fruits. The fruits, they bear seeds which germinate to form new plants. Other plants do not produce flowers, and they are propagated through other means. So plants are therefore classified as flowering or non-flowering. Plants are classified as either flowering or non-flowering plants. So these plants are locally found in our everyday environment, but so to categorize plants into flowering and non-flowering plants, some of you will need maybe to go into your school environment and get some specimen for you to use to make the differences. So when carrying out this activity, care must be taken to avoid destruction of plants around the school compound. You should uproot very few plants as much as possible. Only those plants that you need should be uprooted. This is very, very important because when you are taking your lesson outside your school compound and where you need to get some specimen, it is also important to mind that the environment also is kept well with the same plants. So it is always good to get as little as possible or uproot very few plants as such or as much as possible, so that plants should not be uprooted much. And again, do not uproot plants that have medical value, right? Or those that are from rare species. It is better to cut off a part of the plant because the plant continues to grow. So there are some of the plants which are very essentials. They happen to help in medications. And again, there are some plants which are rare. They are not found, they are not common. So because they are not common, it is important to spare those species for the sake of their scarcity. And again, when you find it is possible, exchange plants or leaves with other groups after you have studied yours instead of going out for more. So if you have groups where you also need to study these plants in the groups, mind that you should just exchange the already uprooted plants so that you spare a lot of plants from your school compound. So where plants are very few, observe the plant spots on site, uproot only one or two if you need to. So if your school has very little plants, it is important to study those parts required on the same plant, or you can uproot only one or two if you need to. And in the cases where your school environment has no plants, so in the case plants are not available in your school, you will also need to examine the parts using the examples of plants drawing, which you'll be given later, and you'll study those drawings carefully so that you understand what we mean, what we're going to discuss when we want to differentiate plants into flowering and non-flowering. So that will help you to understand the differences properly. So if you happen to get those plants from your environment, or if you don't have those plants in your environment and then you have the diagrams, you will also happen to know that plants are divided into two main groups. Some are called non-flowering and others are called flowering. So the non-flowering plants are plants which do not bear flowers. They are grouped into algae, mosses, and liverworts, ferns, and conifers. If we talk about flowering plants, they are plants that bear flowers. They include all dicotyledonous and monocotyledonous plants. They include all the dicotyledonous and the monocotyledonous plants. So examples which might include maize, beans, wheat, mangoes, just to mention a few. There are so many, there are a lot of non-flowering plants in our environment. So the figure below shows examples of flowering and non-flowering plants. So here are the figures, and this column I have the flowering plants, and here I have non-flowering plants. These are just very few examples to show what are flowering and what are non-flowering plants. Now here we have a maize plant, which is also a demonstration of a monocotyledonous plant, and again it is a flowering plant as well. And then a bean plant, here it is also a flowering plant, and again it is a demonstration of a dicotyledonous plant or a dicot plant. And here we have examples of non-flowering plants, and here we have the mosses and the pine trees. So these are just very few examples out of the many examples we have in our environment. Now, we have to continue with the flowering plants, where we look at the monocotyledonous and the dicotyledonous plants. So, these flowering plants are many. Some are again further categorized into monocots, and some are categorized into dicots. All right. This further describes how these flowering plants are made up. So, the monocotyledonous plants are flowering plants with one cotyledon only. With one cotyledon only. Yeah. Examples are maize and grasses. These are just the most common examples which can be found in almost every environment. Yeah. So we have others which are called dicotyledonous, are flowering plants with two cotyledons or cotyledons. Examples are beans and groundnuts. The most common examples could be beans and groundnuts. Just to shed more light on the monocotyledonous and the dicotyledonous plants, this has been a topic to your maybe primary curriculum, where you discuss about flowering and non-flowering plants. You have ever discussed that there are plants which have got two dicots, or they have got two dicotyledonous. And these plants are called the dicotyledonous plants. And those plants with one cotyledon, and they are regarded as monocotyledonous plants. So here is where we just look into how can you differentiate the monocotyledonous and the dicotyledonous plants. Now here are the differences of the monocots and the dicots. So if you went into an environment where you uprooted some of the plants in your environment, I feel you have uprooted at least a maize plant, maybe is there, and then let me regard as maybe you have also uprooted a bean seed, a bean plant, I should say. So you'll discover that the roots and the seeds of the two plants show clear differences. They show clear differences. We're just assuming that there with your specimen you have a plant of a bean and a plant of a maize seed. I should say a plant of a maize plant, and then maize seeds and the bean seed. So we're in such kind of the differences where we see the dicots and the monocotyledonous. Then in beans there is one long root continuous with the stem. you'll find that in the bean seed, you have a root system where they have a wrong root system. And the one wrong root then forms branches. Along the wrong root system, you'll find that there are some branches going sideways out of that wrong root system. So that is an example of a root system which is found with the Dicotyledonous plant. But in maize, there is no one root continuous with the stem. It has many roots growing from the bottom end of the stem. This is different, whereby in the bean you have one wrong root, while in the maize seed or the maize plant is where you have roots growing all from the base of the stem. From the base of the stem, all of the roots grows there. So that is a demonstration of the root system which is found with the Monocotyledonous plants. So the root system in the bean is a taproot system, and that of the maize is the fibrous root system. So the taproot system is accompanied with the Dicotyledonous plants, and the fibrous root system is accompanied by the Monocotyledonous plant. So the seeds which you have of maize have one cotyledonous or cotyledon, while those of beans have two cotyledons. If you don't get what are these cotyledons, if you have that bean seed, try to break it, you'll find that the bean seed will break into equal parts, two equal parts. Those division into equal parts, one could be regarded as a cotyledon, and the other part could also be regarded as a cotyledon. So those two are what makes the dicots. But in a maize seed, this is different. You may not break that in such a way. As far as it has one cotyledons, that's why it is regarded as a monocot. So the figure below summarize monocots and dicots, which means they summarize into their leaf system and furthermore. Yeah, so there we have examples of leaf, which further explains about the monocots and the dicots. With the leaf, under the monocots, you'll find that these leaves, they have got parallel venations. In parallel venations, where we look at all those veins, they appear to be parallel to each other. Yeah, that is different with the dicots, whereby they are not parallel. Leaf network, they make a reticulate venation. In other case, we may say they are not parallel. You can also seem to see whereby their venations go without good pattern. They don't seem to go parallel to each other. Not only that, we may also differentiate monocots and dicots using their roots and seeds. So here we have the roots. What we said about the fibrous roots, all of these roots, they develop from the base of this stem. This could now be regarded as a glass, whereby all the roots, they develop from the base of the stem. This is also another explanation which you might get to differentiate a monocot and a dicot. So this root system is for monocots. For the dicots, this is the root which I said it continues from the stem. So it looks like a stem goes deep down the soil, but this is a root. So out of this root, there are some small branches which they are branching sideways of this wrong root system. So this is called the taproot. So this is a demonstration of a plant which is a dicot. Now, you may also differentiate monocot and dicot using their seeds. I said a monocot, you may not have two cotyledons, while the dicot, you have two cotyledons, and this could be a demonstration. So this is a cotyledon, and then this is also another cotyledon. Yeah, so these make the two. You may see they are at least divided into two, and these make the two cotyledons, and this makes the di, which says two. So dicots and monocots are differentiated using the three main parts which we have just shared here. Now, if you happen to pick plants from your environment, which means you have also been differentiating from what I was just explaining. Now, look at those type of the plants you have in your specimen. You'll see that if the plants, they have parallel venations in their leaves, then those are monocots. And if you see that they have lenticulate venations, those are dicots. And then their root system also matters, whereby if you see that they have at least a taproot, then those could be regarded as the dicots, and if they have got the fibrous root, then that could be regarded as the monocot. If you continue by looking into their seeds, then you can also see those seeds with two cotyledons, they may be regarded as the dicots, and those with one cotyledon could be regarded as the monocot. Now, another task that I can give you, we have very few examples here, but as you discover more, you can also look into more examples of what could be the monocots and the dicots. Yeah, so take a vast experiment where you can be observing different kind of seeds if they have got a monocotyledonous or a dicotyledonous. Now, to add more, you'll find that dicots and monocots are therefore categorized according to the pattern of veins of their leaves and the root system, and then the number of cotyledons in their seeds. So these three, they make the categorization of monocots and the dicots. Hopefully you have understood well according to the way how I have explained about these flowering plants, that they are divided into two, monocots and dicots, and then we have differentiated the monocots from the dicots. Now, we can continue by looking at characteristics of now non-flowering plants. Let us now come to non-flowering plants. We have just shared flowering plants, and we have not yet discussed about their characteristics, but we have just explained more on how you can identify the flowering plants. But now let us talk about the non-flowering plants. Out of these non-flowering plants, there are many, but because there are many, they have also different characteristics according to the system of their survival. So, characteristics of non-flowering plants. There are so many non-flowering plants, but we will now discuss the characteristics according to the type of the plant we are dealing with, because all these plants, they happen to survive in a different kind of environment. So, with that differences, they happen to have different characteristics. But the common characteristics will be all of them, they don't produce flowers. Now, in this case, we'll start by discussing the characteristics of the mosses and the liverworts. So these, they happen to, we will discuss their characteristics combined because they have got similar characteristics. So the mosses and the liverworts are simple plants with simple structures. For you to understand that these are mosses and liverworts, you will know that they do not have true roots and leaves or stems. Yeah, they do not have true roots, leaves, and stems. All right, and they reproduce by means of spores. Yeah, because all of them, they produce by means of spores. That's why we're discussing their characteristics as one. Then again, they are found in damp places like walls or caves. So the figure below shows a moss and a liverwort, just to explain of what we have just shared here. Now these are the diagrams of the moss and the liverwort. So these are the parts of these non-flowering plants, and this is the liverwort and this is the moss. Yeah. So these are some of the parts you might see on these non-flowering plants. So the common thing, they don't produce flowers. They produce by making their spores. That's what you need to know. Then we may continue to discuss about the algae. This is also another simple plant, like an organism. They have chlorophyll and they can photosynthesize. And again, they are usually found in water. And examples of algae are sporagla and the seaweeds. That's what I already said. We'll discuss these characteristics of these non-flowering plants according to the environment. Some like what we're discussing about the alga here. It is a plant that survives in water. So examples are the spirogla and the seaweeds. So the figure shows the spirogla, which is an example of the alga. Yeah, so this could be the examples of, this could be the parts of the spirogla as an example of the alga. In common, this could be another type of an organism, a plant organism, which does not produce flowers. So the spirogla, to add more, it reproduces by fragmentation or by production of spores. So fragmentation, where it divides itself to make another plant, or it also produced by making the spores. So their bodies are made of simple elongated cells, and they do not have roots, stems, and leaves. Yeah, so that could explain more about the algae. So there are so many non-flowering plants. Now we continue by looking at ferns. Ferns are large green plants with true roots, stems, and leaves. Yeah, they have leaves with leaflets, and they produce spores which grow into small plants. They produce spores which grow into small plants. These small plants produce sperms and eggs, which on fertilization produce fertilized eggs, which grow to form a new fern. This has been another type of an unflowering plant whereby we see a lot of new elements, whereby we discuss that they have sperms and eggs which on fertilization produce fertilized eggs which grow to form a new fern. They do not produce flowers. All right, they do not produce flowers, and they are grown in shaded areas, and some grow on the backs of other trees. So this could be a very good illustration of the ferns. So ferns have underground stems called rhizomes. So this could be the stem, and this is the glowing fern. This could be the glowing fern. Yeah, we still have more examples of the non-flowering plants, and now we can go to conifers. So these plants do not produce flowers. Instead, they produce structures called the cones, and examples are pine, cedar, then the cypress, podum, cycads, and the conifers. They have true leaves that are modified into needle-like structures, and they have woody stems and produce seeds in structures called cones. So these are also another example of non-flowering plants. More in common, all these are regarded as non-flowering plants because they have that element which they don't produce flowers. Yeah, you have to understand it there. They don't produce flowers. That's the issue. Now, this is a demonstration of a conifer, and this looks like a big plant. But what you may get from this non-flowering plant could be wood. Wood is also there. In other cases, some could also get timber from some of the conifers. So this has been the explanation about non-flowering plants. But if you may remember, we have not shared about the characteristics of flowering plants, which means next time we meet, we shall discuss characteristics of flowering plants. We shall discuss characteristics of flowering plants. That has been Joy Chapusa. I thank you for being a very good listener. Thank you until we meet next time. Thank you.